now I'm f***ed. I'm starting to dig into my savings. I haven't uploaded a YouTube video. And Jimmy phones out of the blue.
I knew you as Dan the director, this like creative wonder kid.
You YouTube, I'm going to Hollywood.
50,000 people have decided they're not interested in you.
Those people.
Can I read a text from Casey to you?
If you dare do that to Casey, you'll cut your finger off.
This scenario, I think, will happen more and more.
I've never spoken about this before, actually.
Today on the Colin and Samir Show, we're joined by Dan Mace. Dan is the Chief Creative Officer at Beast Philanthropy, and together with MrBeast, he's grown that channel to over 20 million subscribers. Dan is one of the most talented creatives on YouTube, and before his time working with MrBeast, he was working with Casey Neistat. And before all of that, he was directing multi-million-dollar commercials when he was only 23 years old. This conversation has so much value in it because Dan shares the lessons that he's learned from working with the two most influential creators in the history of YouTube. This episode is sponsored by our friends at Spotter. Spotter partners with creators to help accelerate their careers through capital, knowledge, and community. They've paid over $850 million to creators like Eric, Destroying, MrBeast, Dude Perfect, Canigra Dion, and 400 other creators through catalog licensing deals. They also launched Spotter Labs this year, which is a suite of AI tools that helps the top creators come up with better ideas for their channels. And those tools were developed alongside creators, actually in brainstorms that were held here in our studio. And every year, Spotter hosts the Spotter Summit. It's an event that Colin and I help put together where we bring together top creators and thought leaders to learn from each other and solve problems that we're all facing. So if you're a creator looking to accelerate your career through capital, knowledge, and community, click the link in our description, go to spotter.com/Colin and Samir, and reach out to the Spotter team to see if you're eligible to partner with Spotter. All right, now for our conversation with Dan Mace. Dan Mace, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Man, great to have you here.
It's been 4 years since I started watching these videos. 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
2017.
What were we doing back then?
You were like right at the beginning.
Yeah.
But nothing's changed regarding the color palette. Like everything's the same. Like your guys' faces are exactly the same.
Yeah, we haven't aged at all.
Yeah. It's like
his beard is
Colin
gray,
and
but
Samir.
outside of that.
Yeah, it's like I remember distinctly, like you must have had like 3,000, 4,000 subscribers, maybe like even less, I don't know. And somehow I was in New York with Casey at the time, and like you guys popped up and we watched something, and then Casey was like, these guys are super smart. Like they're good YouTubers. And I remember like looking at the amount of subscribers, and I just moved over to the YouTube side of things. I was like, how can they be good YouTubers? They only have 4,000. You know what I mean? Like the way that I entered YouTube was like success means lots of subscribers. Like that's how I kind of looked at the metric back then. But it's interesting to like how far you guys you've just kept doing the same thing and stuck to it. And you know, like I always find like with my content, it doesn't perform as well as if I'm doing stuff, say the Beast Philanthropy stuff, or if I'm helping Casey with his stuff, and it's like, you can define it, you know what it is. But like with my shit, it's all over the place. So it's like, if I just stuck to one thing, like you guys have this thing, and then if you start, I think it was like, maybe Phil DeFranco started daily vlogging at one point. And it just like didn't take.
Yeah.
You know? But he's undoubtedly the best at what he does.
Right.
I'm such a big Phil DeFranco fan. But like, why veer away from that thing?
But as a creative, your mind goes,
I want to try. Can I be good at that?
But the nature of creativity today is that it is, you know, find a format and repeat the format. That's like what the reward cycle is when it comes to the platforms.
Yeah.
But I would, you know, it's very hard to look at yourself, like even how you're saying things to us right now about how we're like consistent and we're good at this format. Like it's very hard to look at that as yourself. And when I think, even when I hear you saying like, you're like, I'm all over the place, that you can say that, but I can close my eyes and imagine a Dan Mace video exactly. Like you have a style and a voice and a, you know, a filmmaking, you know, an auteurship of what you're making that is so clear. And
there's a common thread for us on the other end.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't feel that way to you often.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I for
Yeah.
me, like I feel, yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. My content's just chaos. It's like my head right now. I don't even know what the question or the answer, but I had something that I wanted to say. And
Was it that you want me to sample these bars that you have open on the
oh
table
yeah,
right now?
by the way, have you had a Bru Bar?
That's the first plug of the
No,
episode.
Yeah.
If you're wondering what this is, wait till later and you'll find out why.
Someone's been hanging
and
out
if you're
with Mr.
listening,
Beast.
just
That's
know
it,
that
right?
someone's been hanging out with Mr. Beast.
Some AVD right there. No, I think, yeah, and on what you were saying about like, I think if you consistent and you're doing the same thing, that like reward pathway of excitement, putting something out and going like, oh yes, it's done well, like the blue line's growing, you know. If you're keeping on doing the same thing over and over and it's constantly working, do you think that reward pathway like gets less and less? You get less dopamine from it because you just know it's going to work?
Well, depending, I think, on the type of person you are and also what other metrics you get connected to. Because essentially, if like when you start, your own creativity is the metric. Like, I'm sure we can all connect to the first time you edited a video and watched it back.
Yeah.
And you were just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like I did that. And maybe I could do it differently like this.
Yeah,
And that's the reward. And then once you upload it to a YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And then the numbers go up. Then there's a new drug. And it's not just that edit was cool. It's like that edit was only cool if these numbers go up.
Yeah, I call it view juice.
Yeah. VJ. Yeah. VJ.
Blue.
Right. And then
it's
once
addictive,
once you
thing.
get numb to that, it's like the money, right? Oh, now I'm getting
Yeah.
booked for brand deals. And now that's a whole nother metric.
Sure.
And so then all of a sudden creativity as the metric is the lowest on the totem pole, you know, when you get into this reward cycle of what are the rewards? Is the reward that I did it? Or is the reward that people liked it? Or is the reward that it made money? Or is it a combination of all of them?
Yeah, I there's a spectrum. I was reading in one of the books that I read. It was all about how much of your creativity are you willing to abandon to pay the bills? Like that's like the first part of it, right? Like you get into that and you're like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to abandon a few bits and bobs here so that I can become a wedding videographer, but then at least I'm still a videographer. But then once you start to get a YouTube channel and a following and all the luxuries that come along with that, those lines, like that spectrum starts to become a little bit more chaotic because now you're starting to abandon all kinds of different things and you're starting to be swayed by relevancy, fame. Like you're walking down the road and maybe one time you got someone taking a photo with you. Next time you walk down that road, that person's not there. No one wants a photo. You're like, oh my, I was once famous, you know?
Yeah.
And
you're looking at people in the eyes being like, do you recognize me?
Yeah.
You look like someone who would watch
You
YouTube.
don't see my bars.
Do you want macadamia nut bars?
Yeah, you go stand at the store next to them. You're like,
They're holding like a camera and a Joby, and you're like, you must know me.
Yeah.
And you're just a guy. You're just a guy sampling bars in a
opening
grocery
up
store.
a YouTube channel, like wearing it on, like whatever. But yeah, there's that, and I totally align with what you're saying. It's all about your character type. I think if you like, you got to be really strong though, you know, to be able to, and we inevitably, I guess Jimmy is like that, and his relevancy is stuck and it's staying for a long period of time. And Casey as well is there, but everyone else is kind of up and down. And you got to be kind of really tough to be able to be highly relevant and then to lose that.
Yeah.
And then deal with it.
Well, I think you have to not be so connected to those outcomes.
That's the thing.
Right.
And how are you?
Yeah.
If technically, like, to become that successful on YouTube, it pretty much has to become your life. So, you know where I'm getting? It's like, it's such a tough one because it's like, well, I have it in, I'm a little bit more disconnected now than I was when I was solely relying on my own channel. because right now I'm doing Beast Philanthropy.
Yeah.
So there is somewhat of a separation. It's not just me. It's me, the team, it's the project, it's the give back. There's a lot of amazing things that happen within that. And then there's views and all that other stuff. But I've found that since starting working with Jimmy, I've had more time with my family. I've had more time with my friends, which has helped with and then also the blue line is just like way higher than it was.
Working on a Beast property. It's just like, I didn't even know numbers could go this high.
Yeah. Also the back end's like, whoa. So maybe I'm just talking shit right now.
There's also constraints though, which is so helpful. Like to have those creative constraints on the Beast Philanthropy channel of like, you know, at the end of the day, you have to tell these stories about certain types of things in a certain type of way.
There's a story.
And you can apply your creativity on that. But on your channel, that's just Dan Mace.
Oh, that's the problem.
You could do anything of any form at any time.
Yeah,
and that sometimes is paralyzing.
Yeah. Well, except for expensive stuff. If I was like rich as fuck, then it would be real problems. Because then like then I
Jimmy don't pay him anymore.
Then you really could do anything.
I'd be shopping at Erewhon all day.
Too much.
Yeah.
So you're here. I'm so fascinated by your story because I feel like I can deeply connect to this concept of being able to see creativity and creative work objectively when it's a little bit further away from me. Like if I had my own YouTube channel, I think I would have an existential crisis.
Oh yeah.
Like with just my name, with just me talking or just me creating, it would be really challenging for me because it's too close to my own identity, and my creativity is like, I'm excited about different ideas every day. And again, like I don't feel like my mind fits into a format, but I can sit with a creator and be like, I can see you and see where you're going, and I could probably help you with your stuff.
Please.
But like you're here in LA accepting, or you accepted a Shorty Award for Beast Philanthropy.
Yeah.
You know, you obviously work with Jimmy. You're the chief creative officer of Beast Philanthropy. I'm curious, as a creative though, from an identity perspective, like how much ownership or creative kind of connection do you feel to the work you're doing when it's not necessarily your own? Or does it feel like your own? It's an honest question of like, what does it feel like to work on someone else's creative project?
It's so funny. So last night, we go accept the award. There's Darren as well, who's the
best guy.
He's
Darren's just the best guy.
I'm trying to think of his title. I always forget it. He's like the main guy.
The director of Beast Philanthropy.
He's like the top tier person there. But he's also the greatest guy I've ever met. And we walk out and this girl comes down and she's like, oh, it's such a pity Jimmy's not here to get the award, but I'm really grateful that you guys could be here to get it in his honor. And I was like, yeah, cool. Like totally. That's fair enough. That feels awesome. And then I could see there's like this thought process of, yeah, but we also like made the films. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But like, then it said like, but the films would never happen if it wasn't for Jimmy. So it's a bit like, to your question, there is sometimes it's my own ego that wants to have the name attached to it.
Of course.
And because I've come from having my own channel to be like, oh, Dan Mace made that film, and that's like, oh, look at me, you know. And then there's what I've learned throughout this year is it's so much more about the work that we're actually doing that it doesn't fucking matter, you know. Like
but that's a pretty evolved point of view.
It doesn't matter, but at some level, it does matter in terms of.
It still gets me sometimes.
Yeah,
it's like if I'm.
Like
you got to find that creative ownership somewhere.
Yeah. No, I phoned Jimmy like in the beginning, after like the second video. I was like, Bru, do you mind if we write in the description? Like it'd be like way down at the bottom, but do you mind if we write like this film was made by Dan Mace? And he was like, yeah, fuck it, whatever. Like that's totally cool. It was. And in doing that, because I also had that battle going like, how do I, regarding the credit of the film, because in for myself, I'm a purist as a filmmaker. Like that's what I love, creating films that are filmic and story narrative driven films, you know. So a film where there would be credits traditionally rolling at the end of the piece, you know, and where Jimmy is the main character. He's also the executive producer. He's the person that's paying for everything. But in this case, it's a YouTube video. And I also don't want to get my personal brand like lost. Because people, if you type in Dan Mace on YouTube now, if you type in Dan Mace on Google now, it literally says, "Where is Dan Mace?" That's what it says. Because I've just like gone missing with the
good SEO. Wow. Maybe we'll title this episode.
We found him.
Yeah.
He's here.
We found
Dan Mace.
Yeah, with a thumbnail, I'm like under a bridge somewhere.
That'd be a great intro for this episode. We find you under a bridge. We bring you here. Sit you down.
Dude. I mean, I can understand though that is it's why I asked the question, is because like I could see myself
very good question,
but I also, you know, this stuff comes up in traditional filmmaking too. The concept of auteurship. Is it a Christopher Nolan film? What about all the other people who worked on it? You know, like who gets the main credit? Yeah. You know, who's really behind it? And I also think in our space, this question also comes up a lot when it comes to editors and post-producers, and, you know, our teams are getting bigger and there's a lot of creative forces. But this scenario, I think, will happen more and more, where there will be creators who are very creative and put a lot of work out on YouTube and have an audience on YouTube, but maybe are just better fit working in a team environment or as a collaborator with someone. Yeah. And so you're kind of one of the first that has publicly done this. You know, with Casey and now as well as with Jimmy. Yeah. So it's interesting to talk through the emotional implications of it too.
Definitely. I think, I'm definitely much better at making other people's content than making my own. And not to say at all, Casey, that I made his videos, okay? I didn't. I was very much a part of the process, but I could never take credit for making Casey's videos. I think there's like a really funny interview Casey did with Rich Roll.
Yeah.
And this is like, Casey's the best because he would always compliment me, but then afterwards, like, it would be like a backhanded compliment every single time. I would be like, oh, he's saying something so nice, and then just slams me at the end. And he said something like, I brought in, you know, I was getting close to being burnt out. So it was like 500 days of vlogging, blah-de-da. So I decided to bring in my friend, and he used words like my most talented friend, someone who's a much better editor than me, all these things. I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, he's going to say my name. And he's like, and Rich Roll's like, Dan Mace. He's like, oh my gosh. And he's like, and you know what it did? It made everything go twice as slow. And I was like, oh no. But it's, you know, I guess it's like that. But I think that for in the case of that scenario with 368 and Casey, it was, I learned about character dynamics.
Yes, you were a character in those videos.
I became a character out of nowhere. I went there to edit and to video the vlogs. Like that was like what I was going to do. And I turned quite quickly after realizing like only Casey can edit and shoot Casey stuff. Like every now and then you would throw a camera, like very literally throw a camera. And you're like, and you'd be like, yeah, I'm going to run there and like, don't miss the shot. And you're going and like, then you get it. And then if you edit it, it's wrong, you know, you'll try your hardest. But it's only in what's in his head. And it's very difficult to ever extract that. Like you could be like, can you please tell me? And be like, it'll be a waste of my time telling you, you know, I'd rather just do it myself. So my role became one of a character or caricature that I play of myself within those videos.
I remember that with like the Tech, was it Tech
Tuesday? I learned a lot about these kind of storytelling elements of creating different things that the audience would want to be a part of and see at a later stage. And like AVD, I'm talking that lasts over a year, you know, of things of a Tech Tuesday intro that would never happen. And we never had any Like we just never did it.
So not suggesting that like there's like not retention on a specific video, but retention with a whole brand and a series.
We did so many of those.
For someone who doesn't know, in this instance, the bit in the vlogs at that time was that you were responsible for making an intro for the segment Tech Tuesday. And the recurring bit was that you were always late and you didn't have it done.
Did you shoot a proper intro yet for Tech Review Tuesday?
No.
And you would make some like, it was different every time.
Just so shit. Yeah. I think it started off because it was going to be that I was going to edit all the videos and all that sort of thing. And then I think we wanted to communicate to the audience that Casey was still very much the person editing and shooting, and that I was given this little job that I just could not do. But it got to a point where, for me as and my personal brand and where I'd come from as a director, and in no way Casey meant it to come across this way, but it was diminishing my value as that. Right. I was in Casey's videos, I was always late. I was always interrupting someone. I could never finish a task. I was like the butt of the joke, which was great and it was funny and it helped the vlog. But there was at some parts of it, I found that maybe for anyone that wanted to take me seriously as a film director would watch that and think, this guy's a little bit of a goof.
Yeah, you went from being, there's articles about you that kind of like, I remember this very well because again, I mentioned this to you, but I knew you as Dan the director.
Yeah,
and there was articles I would read about you that positioned you as this like creative wonderkid. Of like this young director, this like radical young director coming out of South Africa, directing these commercials and just like you had a very premium brand.
Yeah.
I remember this so clearly because, there's also this thing that when you look at someone that you really admire, a creative, like, and for me, Casey's Make It Count video obviously was the first one that I saw of his, and then went into this world of like, what is this? What is this type of, I went to film school. So I was like, what is this?
Where did you go to film school?
UC Santa Cruz. It was a banana slug. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to be like, that one.
When you asked, I was like, where's this going to go?
I don't know. It's just, fuck, I don't know many.
I was like, did you
plug, just plug them.
Yeah, no, we just got to plug
the greatest of all time.
Yeah, great.
You want to talk about the bars?
Yeah, you go first.
Everyone plug something. Yeah. Okay, so I was watching Casey's videos, and specifically with Make It Count. He's in the car at one point with Max Joseph. And I was like, so who's that guy? Then I went to his channel and watched Max's stuff. And I was like, oh shit. So this is like, Max Joseph was one of the most influential editors and creatives in my, and I would say.
Have you seen Follow the Frog?
Of course. Yeah, I've seen all of it. I've seen
insane.
So
everything.
Good,
totally
right?
insane.
Yeah, everything. And then saw Oscar Boyson, who was also part of that scene.
Films,
So, also part of that scene. But Max, you can see the people who were inspired by Max Joseph.
I mean, I think we tried to emulate Max Joseph for at least 2 to 3 years.
I've stolen so much Max Joseph.
And that's why I'm saying it is because I watched your stuff and I was like, oh, Dan watches Max too.
Easily.
I understood it from your style of filmmaking and pacing and voiceover and all of it was.
I was so scared to like, when the first time I met Max, I was like worried if he was going to like call me out.
Yeah.
But he was super cool.
He's a very nice guy.
Yeah. But I was wondering if he was going to be like that. It's a little bit, because sometimes when I watched Follow the Frog the first time, I was like, this is revolutionary in the way of like how to merge time and space, how to get from one place. Like he tells this entire narrative in a whole, it's so diverse.
Yeah.
And it's just literally about being aware of, to follow the frog, to drink, what is the frog product? It's like a wildlife something like
tea or I actually don't even know now.
See, Max, you did a shit job because
he was like too good of a story.
Too good. Yeah, follow the frog.
I definitely relate to that though. The first time we met Max, thinking there are some videos in our catalog that if I were to show them to Max Joseph, I would just have to say like guilty.
Yeah,
like
I'm
yes,
so sorry.
like I watched Follow the Frog. I watched everything on your channel.
Yeah, but I think that there's so many there's so many people that have come to me and said the same thing about my work. There's so many Casey,
of course,
copycats that have found a way of doing. I mean,
but you also when you came to YouTube, you changed a lot. You had a very specific style that I could only describe as like obsessive, where I would watch one of your cuts and I would have to pause and go, how long did Dan spend on that?
Yeah, it felt like you sucked us deep into your brain for maybe like a split second. That was like 1 million frames, stop motion animation.
Oh shit, yeah.
And we just had to think like, how long did Dan take for that 1 second?
Yeah. Not worth it.
Okay.
There's like an intricacy to it.
I'm curious because like you knew about Max Joseph and Casey before you started working with Casey. When you started actually working with him and you leave traditional media, essentially, what did you think was the promise of YouTube or the promise of even that one opportunity?
Can I read
Casey?
Can I read a text from Casey to you?
Oh yeah.
He said, all I have is this part of it. We will book for you. You got to take a leap. Greatness comes with bravery. You do the same shit in South Africa, you can expect the same results. Try something new equals a new outcome.
Oh shit. Yo, that's from way back. That must have been in like 2016.
Yeah.
End of 2016. I knew about Max's work before Casey's work because of I had a researcher. I was working traditionally as a film director, and how it works. Jobs would come in, they call them bids, and there would always be 3 directors bidding on one job. Sometimes they would throw in a 4th wild card. It's a brutal process. And because what you would do is you would work on a bid for 2 weeks and then you would lose and you wouldn't get paid for all of that, but you would sit with a researcher and a producer and you'd work out the costs, you'd work out all of this. This is going somewhere, okay? So
I'm interested in this.
Yeah, this is in advertising you're talking about.
This is, in advertising. So you get signed to a production company. The production company will host, say, 10, 15, 20 directors, and the agency, they would have a certain amount of accounts. So say they've got Diageo, who would have like Tusker or Guinness or whatever. They'll go like, we want to find, then that agency would write out an ad. Geez, we're really going through the whole thing, but let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
The agency would then go, okay, cool. Well, Guinness is bringing out a new bottle this year, so we want to make a campaign around that. And we thinking about a comedic kind of ad. Then we'll go to the copywriters and the ECD and the art director, and they would write something. And then they would go, okay, well, let's go through this whole collage of film directors throughout, if it's South Africa, sometimes it's all over the world sometimes. And catalog, not collage. But I was thinking about that. Collage was like kind of,
I like collage.
should we keep collage?
Yeah. And ECD, by the way, is executive creative director.
Yes, ECD, yeah. So this collage of directors, and from there they would approach the different production companies, and you could never be a part of the same production companies, have 2 directors go against each other. So it would literally be like 3, but you wouldn't know who else you're bidding against, because then obviously like the producers could go behind and kind of like start to maybe backhand or whatever. So you would always try and figure out which director you're going up against. But you would have a researcher. Anyways, I did this job, and Follow the Frog was one of the films that my researcher pulled up. And I remember when I watched it, I was like, fuck, that shit's good. And that from there, then I found out about Max Joseph. I watched something else of his. And then I kind of, after that, I didn't see too much more Max Joseph stuff. I went straight into, if you notice from way back when, from my first films, it's always sound and music. It's always intertwined, like the whole way through. I've got this weird like need to make music out of weird shit. Like that's always in everything with Jimmy and stuff too, with the Beast Philanthropy films. I get so excited. Like, bro, we're making this diegetic soundtrack out of these people singing and doing all the stuff. And when he looks at it, he'll be like, "Yo, it's cool, but I mean, like, just for a little bit, though, because we need to get into the film. Nobody's gonna sit and watch like a minute of, like, maybe the purist, maybe the artsy kind of people. Like, I'm interested in shit like that, but So right from the start, I was into that sort of thing, and then I think." I must have been 23 or 24, I made a film called Gift, which was about, I was going through a really difficult time in my life then. And I wrote this film, I wrote a poem about a boy that danced to the sound of his fears. Because in South Africa, we have street performers, we call them robots, but they're actually traffic lights. Pretty funny. Okay. I'm not lying. Like if you go over there at the robot, that's the traffic light. So at the traffic lights, you would stop in traffic and there'll be people performing. And I saw this kid dancing with no music, and I thought, about making a film about how he dances to the silence, what fuels this rhythm, and it's very deep. Anyway, back then I was 23, and to write something like that, it sounds like really deluded now, because that seems like it needs quite a lot of life experience to kind of break that apart. So when I go back and I watch that and I hear some of the wording that I use, it's really embarrassing. But the intent was there.
The concept is like, I've seen it. It was your My Road reel, right?
Oh, that's the first awarded one. Yeah.
With that film specifically, like, that's hard to make. Like what you made is not easy to make.
It's tough.
That means that you really did care about the craft. And I know that sounds absurd for me to say to a filmmaker or a creative, but we're in a world today where I think that the majority of creators are trained to care more about the outcome than the craft.
Yeah, you gotta watch like how you say that shit now.
Yeah. But right. But that's like, and I'm saying me as part of this group too, it's natural. We are now in an outcome-based creative environment.
Sure.
And that is like really hard to do. But I'm curious about those outcomes in the business of advertising. Like, were you making good money as an advertising director? When you get one of those bids, like how much money are we talking about to make advertisements?
Yeah, it gets big. So back to Gift. I made this film, and at the time it cost 7,000 rand. Okay.
What is that in dollars?
$300 US dollars. Okay. Yeah. And my friend, who's a very, very successful DP now, who shot it, Fabian, he's just a very hectic guy. He like put down, I think, most of the money. But we could win, I think it was like $40,000 worth of gear, a road gear. Yeah. And that's like money I'd never heard of. I thought, wow, we didn't even know how to work that back into rands. We just knew it was like a shitload of money. And we ended up winning. And then that film went to Cannes, to the Young Directors Awards, and it won that. And then also another film, a production house that entered another film of mine into Cannes that year as well, and it won there as well. And the other film about rats, bomb sniffing rats. It was an interesting concept.
Wow, I'm hooked.
Yeah, bro. You should go watch it.
Yeah.
It's about they sniff out the bombs.
That's wild.
Yeah, they make them.
Wait, so this isn't fiction. This is real.
This is real shit. It's funny, if you type in my name on Google and you see like the films I've made, it says like bomb sniffing rats.
Yeah.
It's like the weirdest thing. But it's like cool, clickbait, I reckon. But yeah, anyway, so I made that film. and that won as alongside Gift. And then from there, everything changed. Like my entire career, I used to sell jams. Like that was my job.
Like,
what do you mean?
like peanut butter and jelly jams?
Yeah, like jam, like strawberry jam.
Strawberry jam.
really?
Yeah.
Apricot jam.
Oh.
Dude, out the boot of my car. What do you call a boot here?
Trunk.
A trunk.
Yeah.
Out of my trunk.
Where were you getting the jams?
From this guy called Odette's Kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, I found it in the newspaper.
Yeah.
So I would do anything for money back then. Oh, I mean, geez, okay, not anything. But I would
But close.
I would do anything.
you'd sell jam.
But anything jam related.
You know, you haven't come that far, if we're just being
Yeah,
honest.
you're still.
Speaking, I know.
You're selling,
We'll get to
you're
this
selling
later.
bars out of the...
We know we're not supposed to say what they are yet.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're going to get to that
Yeah.
later.
No, this is the evolution of jam. But yeah, so back then I was a jams salesman. I was so into selling jam that I would sometimes leave the jam in the back of my car because in case you get like a spontaneous buy.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, of course.
Like
You never know when that's going to happen.
You never know. And someone's like, I'm out of jam. You're like,
Boom.
I got you. What flavor you want?
Gotcha.
So, but what would happen if the jam got too hot in the trunk? It would fucking explode. You know what it's like driving down and next minute gunshots start firing off in your trunk?
Yeah.
Bah, Jesus.
Okay.
And you look back and there's just red up there and you think, fuck, someone just got shot in the trunk of my car. You know, that's the life of a jam
That was
salesman.
life before the Young Directors Award.
Yeah.
That was life of a jam salesman.
Dude, life of a jam salesman is deep, dude. Luckily, before I went completely broke, and I had no idea. I was just trying to make films. Like that's it. Like I know it sounds like funny. Back then it was gnarly. And I'd made Gift. I'd pour everything into these films back then. Not that I don't now, but then I had nothing, you know. So I'd put every cent that I had. And to get the call from my road reel to say that we had won, that was insane. And then a month later to get the call to say they're flying me to Cannes, I was like, what? And then I came back home and at these Young Directors Awards, there's all these producers from production companies, global production companies that want to sign young directors. And in like 2014, 15, it was very trendy to use young film directors for big brands because the big brands wanted to try and this whole like Gen Z kind of thing had started coming out. People were looking into the future at like what the next generation of advertising was going to look like. So I went from jam salesman to winning single bids. And a single bid is when you bypass the whole bidding process. You just get the job. So the production company that represented me, they were really wise and really good. And they were like, we got Dan. He doesn't fucking bid. Like, give us a job when he doesn't want it. I'll be like, geez, I'll bid. I don't want to go back to selling fucking jams. Jesus, you fucking drive down the highway with shit exploding. Like, no, I'll bid. So I did like 6 months of single bids. My very first job I did was for a beer called Tusker, which is probably like the most renowned kind of ad that I've done. It's one of the more famous ones because that also then went into winning a bunch of awards. And I remember the executive creative director then looking at me and saying, this is the biggest blessing and curse you'll ever have as a director, because this is it's your first job where you've got unlimited creative license. The agency does not know what you're talking about here, because the brief was, there's massive segregation in Kenya. There's 42 different tribes. We are the number ones selling beer. We don't have any competition. So our whole idea or identity is pretty much trying to bring people together. So how do we bring 42 different people together without it being like, you know, here's a beer and let's all come together and party. So I used the same concept as Gift, where we went around Kenya and collected diegetic sounds. Diegetic sounds are like sounds that happen in front of camera, much like this bar. If you had to chew into it now and you'd hear that delicious crunch, that would be a diegetic sound. A non-diegetic is something outside of what we see of the cave film school over here.
I went to UCC.
Yes. Of course. Diegetics, non-diegetics, I mean, inductive, deductive,
Sure.
You can go really deep.
Whatever.
I said to them, look, the way we're going to do this is we'll go and record all these sounds and I will make an anthem for Kenya for 2016 or whatever it was, the new anthem. And the brand was like, geez, fuck. Okay, I mean, if you can pull it off. And the budget just kept on increasing and they were cool with it because they could see that this thing was starting to transform. And we're flying around in this little plane throughout Kenya in these little tribes, capturing all this beautiful music. And we made the most incredible short film and TV ad. And for that job, I think that was probably around $3 million.
Oh, wow. US dollars.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The budget?
Yeah, the budget, where a director should make 10% of that.
Oh, that's really significant.
Yeah, but I didn't get that shit. I didn't know that shit back then.
Oh, you didn't
I got fucked.
Oh, okay.
But I still got paid. From Jam to there,
Yeah.
dude, I got paid.
Got it.
In my mind. And from there, the rest was history. I went from that it took me to the next success, the next one, and I got very complacent very quickly. And then I started to become a complete imposter. Like, I think about a year in, that's when I took to drinking and drugging. I just didn't believe in myself. I was dealing with subject matter that I didn't know anything about. Like, you make a spot about a father and a son from the father's perspective, and I don't know if it's just that or it's also the pressure and people were expecting so much of me, and also there were certain people in certain fields that knew what was going down and they were okay with it happening regarding me drinking and using drugs and that sort of thing, as long as I got things over the line. And that's when Casey came into the picture. He had come down to Cape Town to visit his wife's parents that have a house in Camps Bay near the beach. And Ben Brown, an old, not old, but like a old
veteran
of that
what do you
generation.
call
OG,
it? Like an OG YouTuber.
Yeah.
So I would watch him, and I was off on my own thing, and with the film directing, I completely lost touch with YouTube, but I would still hang with Ben. And then Ben wasn't here, and he was like, my friend Casey's coming down. Do you want to go up the mountain with him for a run, whatever? And I was so unhealthy and unfit, and I was like, sure. And I knew who Casey was, but back then, I think Casey was still doing Snapchat videos, and maybe he had like a couple 100,000 followers on YouTube. And to be honest, like it wasn't something, there was no like stardom or anything. I was like, cool, it would be, I'm just going to meet some guy. And he was awesome. We got on really well. He was like very intense from the beginning. He made me like walk much faster than I could up the mountain. And I was thinking to myself like, fuck. And a year went by, and we kept in touch. And he then saw the Tusker ad that I'd done. And we had been speaking a lot, and I opened up to him and I told him I'd just come out of rehab. And I said to him, like, I want to do something else with my filmmaking career. Like, I feel like I'm trapped in this place, and it's dark. And he just like offered me a job straight away. He was like, well, why don't you move to New York and work with me? And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool, And then I like dropped him off at his house, and he was like, yeah, I'll text you later about everything. And I was like, that's never going to happen. But it was like, cool. It's cool to romanticize about something like that. And then he texted me, I think he flew back to New York, and he texted me, he's like, are you still keen to come to New York? And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm keen. He's like, okay, cool. I'll see what I can make happen. And then I had to continue in the film industry, in the traditional world. And then I was doing my biggest commercial yet. I was doing the IPL ad. That budget must have been like $4.5 million or something. And there was like 500 people on set. And it was just everything that I hated about where I wanted to go. I was this glorified director. I had my own trailer that they would drive me around and that had a bed in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing? This is
those feel very funny to experience some of that.
Yeah. I was just like, this is such a waste of money. But like, also at the same time, I had just come out of rehab, and I was really trying to practice like a lot of humility, and try and find some form of serenity, and like that just wasn't helping. That was just
amplifying.
Yeah, that was just making everything seem so intense. And there's a lot of cravings and things involved in that. And I phoned Casey then. I was like, is this thing gonna happen, Bru? I need out. He was like, we'll fly. That must have been at the end of March. And he was like, fly to New York on the 1st of April. And from there, the rest was history. And I didn't know what to expect, but the one thing that I just thought would be the case is that I wouldn't be the guy running down the road with a camera, being shouted at.
Yeah.
Going from like here, where people would call me sir or boss. Like a big thing on set is to be called boss.
Yeah.
It's just like a thing. What do you want, boss? Whatever. Casey would never call you boss, and this was a joke. You know,
yeah, right.
But like, he'd be like, take this, throw the camera, and why is it out of focus? Why is this da 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 da? And I remember just going from feeling like I was up here to feeling like I'm way down here. Like my imposter syndrome makes sense now. You know, it suddenly put me down, which is the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. There was a lot of times that I wanted to give up when I was with Casey. There was a lot of times where I looked at all the stuff that he had in his studio, and like all the successes and all the trophies and all this iconography that you'd attach to somebody that just is so important. And I would think to myself, there's absolutely no way I'm ever going to get to where this person is. And I would constantly compare age. Casey's 10 years my senior. So I'd be like, I got 10 years to become as successful as Casey. Became like very fixated on that. And the more and more the days went on, the less and less I could keep up with his schedule, with his, I was like, he also has a family, and he has time for his kids. He has all the stuff. And he's still able to work, and he's putting out a daily vlog, and I'm here to help him, and I can't even help myself, you know? And I really, really struggled. And then we were doing a shoot with Shawn Mendes. We were in London at the time. And I remember that's when I had like my first proper kind of breakdown. I've never spoken about this before, actually. I'm gonna have to send this to Casey first and see what he has. No, but I had my first breakdown, and I said to Casey, I need to go back to New York. Like I can't work like this. Like I don't know. Like I'm freaking out. And he was like, just book yourself a ticket back, and we'll discuss it when we get back to New York. And when I got back, then I decided to make my first like kind of YouTube videos since I made a video called like Getting to 368 or something. And I made this like video, just like me doing some poem, and I was like, where I like fell off a building in the beginning, and it was like very sad. The whole poem is about like having like depression and stuff. And that was when I was like in my peak of going through having like the real feelings of mental health and that, because I couldn't hide behind drugs and alcohol and stuff. I had to feel like the rawness of it. And I was in this unfamiliar territory and I wasn't feeling good at what I was doing. It was like all of this stuff. And that's not what you see in front of camera at all. You know, behind the camera, I was suffering. And it wasn't Casey's fault at all. That was my like unresolved shit with myself. And the main part was the fact that I thought that I'd made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would phone Gabby, who's now my wife. She was my girlfriend back then. And I kept on saying to her, I've made the wrong choice. You know, I should have stayed at home. I even like phoned my old production company, just told me to fuck off because I'd left them high and dry pretty much. And I just decided to continue. There was this like weird thing, and this is like a platitude, but it was like a fucking cliff that's shaped like that. And I'm like here, and I'm like trying to get up it. And then there's like a cloud. And then I knew that there was going to be like this peak. I just didn't know where in the cloud I was, you know?
Yeah.
I was definitely in that cloud. And I reached this point where I was like, if I'm working so hard that I'm actually like in pain, I must be progressing forwards. Now this is terrible for those, that hustle, anti-hustle culture shit, which we can get into, because I don't like those people, okay? You got to work hard, which we'll speak about just now. That's why you got to eat a Bru Bar.
That.
But
that's plug number 4.
But I nearly gave up a bunch of times, and I pushed through till the point where Casey and I said, "Look, you know, I'm gonna go and start my own YouTube channel. I'm gonna go back to South Africa. I'm gonna propose to Gabs."
Yeah.
He was like, "That's awesome," and he was also gonna slow down on the 368 vlogs. And because of that, and I stuck it through, I think that's why Casey has respect for me now. You know, I stuck it through with him, and he well knows like how much had to go into every day to get that shit done. And I didn't give up. And I think he saw there was a lot of times where I wanted to give up, you know, where I was on the edge of like just going like, I can't do this anymore. I also don't want to paint Casey out to be like a really terrible person to work with, because he's not. He's just exceptionally hardworking.
He's a one of one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's someone. And like I was saying, it was the comparison that was killing me. I was going like, I need to be as successful as Casey because I've given up this other thing.
Yeah, there's a couple comparisons happening, which is like comparison to Casey, but it's also comparison to the unbelievable elevated status you had as a director.
Yeah.
Right? Like sitting on that set for the IPL, like you are almost like a godlike figure on that set. Yeah, and it's like, this is the young, again, like you were positioned as this young wonderkind director.
Whereas the dynamic when you're in London on the shoot with Shawn Mendes is that I imagine you're like sort of bottom billing.
Oh, way at the bottom. Yeah. Like the guy who's carrying the camera. Yeah.
Is that what, in that moment, is that like part of what's eating at you?
Definitely. Like that's not and maybe I haven't even thought that through, and thanks. Now I can cancel my session with my psychiatrist because you've broken through. I think like there is that maybe it's that the weight of it being like, there's a jealousy element in that too, where it's like, I should be the person that's here, like directing this thing.
Yeah.
Or I should at least have a bigger role or doing this. And now I'm this guy carrying a camera bag. And that's like fatiguing in itself. And maybe that's what fucked me up a lot.
Yeah, of course. Because you had experience being on a Dan Mace production.
Yeah.
And now you're on a Casey Neistat production. Right.
Yeah.
And those productions look very different.
Yeah. And those are
way
also
different.
There's also
Casey with Shawn Mendes and you in London looks very different.
But Casey probably had a trailer with a bed in it, right? On that shoot.
No, he had a nice room. He had a good room.
Just like the nature of like the way that he does things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very drastically different than the advertising business with a $4 million budget.
Oh yeah. And that's why his films are so great, because that film itself, it had, he filmed Shawn in like areas like in the dressing room, like trying to prepare his voice, and like, it was very intimate. And he's good at like building these friendships, and then because he's such a likable guy, and then he just whips out a small camera, nothing intimidating. Where other film directors may have gone a different route and set too much shit up, and it would have made them feel a bit hesitant to say what they're really feeling.
The comparison thing is interesting, because even for us at the time that you're working with Casey, we're really struggling to figure out what we're doing on YouTube, and we're watching you and we're watching Casey, and even you getting to work with him, getting the shout out on his channel was this incredibly aspirational thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we looked at it from a perspective of that's success, and that's potentially that's the validation we need, so that everyone will go, oh yeah, those guys, like those are the guys.
Right. Like we were looking at that scenario being like, how do we get the Dan Mace job with someone? Right? Like, how do we do that with a creator?
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what was the impact of the Casey Neistat stamp of approval and the influx of people that now followed you?
I mean, every single person would be like, I know you from Casey Neistat. Like, I've been following you the whole way back since Casey. So
I guess you were on like a hit show. If you really think about it, it was like a daily show that had the viewership of a hit TV show every single day, and you were on that show.
Yeah. So the shout out itself, that in as much as grateful as I am for that shout out, and I think it grew me by 300,000 subscribers, something ridiculous like that, huge amount. Like, it was also, it had the downside because those followers trickled off. So as soon as I started to create my own content and gain momentum, I was losing the followers that I had gained from Casey, but gaining my own ones. So I plateaued at around like 500,000 subs, I think 550. I was constantly uploading, but you would see I'll be dropping off 50,000, but gaining 50,000, dropping off 50,000, gaining 50,000 for a long time. And that was really, really tough.
Yeah, mentally that's confusing to even try and comprehend what it means that 50,000 people have decided they're not interested in you anymore.
Yeah, they think I suck. They're like, where's the cool guy with the glasses with the paint on?
This guy's not meeting my expectations.
Yeah.
How was your mental health though at this point? Because you essentially go from supporting Casey on his videos to making your own YouTube videos, but you're also going through this time. Like, are you still regretting the decision? Are you still confused about the decision?
That's good. Yeah, because we never really bridged that gap. So when Casey and I came to the decision, I'm going to go back home, I'm going to get married, or I'm going to propose to Gabs, and he's going to slow down on the vlog. I mentally, I wanted to then take on YouTube and not go back into, I wanted to see where this thing went, because I'd got the shout out now as well. So I had all these people. I got a phone call from, can I say brand names?
Yeah.
I got a phone call from SeatGeek, and they offered me, from Ian.
Yeah.
And they offered me $15,000 to do a brand deal. I was like, what? $15,000? Fuck, no way. Because I would see Casey doing brand deals, but I would never get to hear the money.
Sure, yeah.
I was like, fuck, that's a good amount of money. Because I mean, from an ad, a TV ad, I would, you'll do one every month or two. I get like 20 grand, 30, sometimes 40 grand.
Yeah.
But it's like a lot more work.
Right.
A lot more that goes into it. There's a lot more people. Actually, come to think about it, it's not as much. That's fucking strange to think about. There's more people, which makes it seem like more.
Sure.
But it's much of a muchness. I'm like, you're going to pay me $15,000 and you don't even know what I'm going to do in this video. Like, you're going to just pay me the money and I'm going to do. So I made a video surprising my ex-boss that fired me.
I remember that video.
Yeah. And I spent the $15,000 that I got paid for by SeatGeek to make the video. I got like a helicopter and the works, stupid. But it made a cool video. And then from there, I just started getting brand deals. I got a manager who phoned me. He was like, I can get this person and that, but I can't remember. It's like Honey and all the norms.
Must have been a VPN.
VPNs back then, just back-to-back VPNing, just
maybe a music library.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just the go-tos, dude.
Sure.
Just endless. You could just stack them up. Like you go through a portfolio and be like, which one do you want?
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, fuck, this is actually like you're speaking about money. And I immediately changed to this thing of going like, what is the point of making a video for YouTube if I'm not going to put a brand deal in it? Because then I'm going to be putting all this time and effort into it, and I'm not going to be, speaking of, if you, well, that's a good one for your guys. No, like I started to think along that mentality because I was like, this can turn into an actual business. Right. But my mental health is still, then it was, there was a lot more weight on,
of course, me
now having to perform underneath my own name. And the dip of followers every time I'd upload, because these people couldn't remember why they'd subscribed, but some guy told them to subscribe, like Casey, like
this guy's playing flute with a brick.
Yeah, like what the fuck is this? And there was so much doubt. I would think to myself, maybe it's because I'm South African. Maybe it's I've got a weird accent. Maybe, maybe they don't like the way that I look. There's just so much that you can attach to that.
How many people were watching the videos at this time though? Because it's like 100,000+, right?
Then I was doing at least like 800,000.
So isn't it strange that we live in a world where you're like, nobody likes me, but 800,000 people are watching you?
Yeah, there would be like 3 comments saying like bad shit about me, which 3 you can times by 1,000 because that's what it feels like.
Right.
Like one bad comment is like 1,000.
There's this time with a lot of creators where all of a sudden your understanding of what nobody is, meaning like nobody is watching, is really skewed, right? You go like 50,000 people watch this video. Nobody watched it, right? Or 100,000 people watched this video. That means nobody watched it.
Well, now with Beast Philanthropy metrics, like if a Beast Philanthropy video performed like one of my highest performing videos, I'd be like, oh, this is the biggest tank in history.
Right. That means if a million people watched a Beast Philanthropy video, you'd be like,
finished,
zero.
Done.
That actually means 0 people watched it.
Massive failure.
Isn't that strange?
And whatever the highest viewership is becomes the expectation. So if you hit it again, it's not, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's, oh yeah, well that's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, let's try something else to make it higher this time.
Yeah. But that's fascinating, of like, the followers were fluctuating, but the real metric is like how many people are watching your work. And again, the joy of a creative when you showed someone your work as a young kid was like, if one person liked it, you were like stoked.
That all went away. That from making Gift, the film, going way back to the beginning, and the intention behind that was to utilize filmmaking to escape the burdens of my conscious mind, I guess, somewhat transcend through this feeling of depression, which fluctuates. I don't know for other people that deal with depression and anxiety, but you understand that it comes and it goes. And when it's bad, generally I create my best work, and I've found an outlet for that, and that is filmmaking. And I lost touch with that when I got into the commercial space, especially with drinking and dragging, and then when I came out of that, and then the followers thing and chasing the trying to better each video, not regarding the creative elements of each video, but bettering the viewership, bettering the comments, bettering what people would say about me. I wanted to be known as this like super creative guy, like that was my thing, And that shit fucked me up, like really bad. And then after that, I had to keep going because
that's your job.
Yeah, it's paying the bills now.
It became a thing where it was like, fuck, I have to keep going. But I'm not going to lie, in 2019, it was just before the pandemic had hit. I just wanted to give up, but I had no other option. I knew that if I had to go to back into the traditional world, I would need like 3 or 4 months money to float me to build my portfolio again, you know. And I couldn't. I had to continue with YouTube. So that's what I did.
That's probably the hardest creative energy, though.
Dude, to turn the camera on when you start speaking to it and you feel like shit.
And you don't believe it.
Start repeating lines, you know. Like, so today we're...
But it's so true, dude. Oh, man, I can only just laugh because, you'd click. And it's just said...
You turn it back on and you're like, do you need protection from unsafe Wi-Fi?
Yeah, dude. Oh,
because I've got a VPN for you.
Bro, there's been there's been times where it's like, okay, I have this breakthrough idea. I'm going to make a fucking song from a brick.
Yeah.
You know?
I really liked that video.
Yeah.
I also liked it. But back then, when coming up with that shit, like, I had no belief. I'd have these crazy ideas and then I would start filming it and I'd get halfway through. And those fucking videos take like a month to make. Do you know how long they take to edit? And at the same time, I'm making other videos so that I can sit and edit that for a bit. And it's like each and every single plinky plonk. And then I'd look at that and look at the timeline and go like, I'm going to give up anyway. What the fuck is the point?
Yeah.
And then I put that video out and then that video got like 1.5 million views or it did well. I don't know. And then I was back on top, you know?
Yeah. And then like, your emotions are swaying.
I don't have depression anymore, dude. I've beat that shit. And my life has been, as a creator, has been really crazy like that. Just before I've wanted to give up, something's happened. And in 2019, a guy called Tom Lofthouse from the Discovery Channel phoned, and he had watched a YouTube, I'll call it, show that I had done that year called the Not Normal Show.
Yeah, I remember that.
I made a seed map. I asked people to plant seeds, which were unfinished ideas all around the world. And he phoned, and that was like 3 days before I was about to literally just go like, I give up. Like really, like I'd made the film. I think I actually put the video out to say like I'm quitting YouTube. And he phoned. He was like, I love what you're doing. I wanna I don't know what it is, but there's something here. Like I want to do a show with you. So you pitch me ideas and we'll come up with something. And we spent that then gave me the, you know, I guess confidence to be like, what I'm doing is okay. So I'm going to keep doing YouTube for now. Well, until I go over and move on to TV, I guess. So that took about like a year to develop the Bru Show. I had more than 12 ideas. I had like maybe 15 or 16 incomplete ideas. I think Discovery could only afford to pay for 12 episodes. But we were like, we're going to finish every single idea in this book. And then that's going to be the end of my chapter on YouTube. That was the plan. Because in and amongst all of that was the development of these 2 feature films I had going. And Discovery was going to be they were going to develop one, and then Warner was going to develop one. And it was like the perfect kind of ending to YouTube because they were going to let me upload those to YouTube as well. These it had to go on Discovery like 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before.
That's a pretty good deal.
That's a lot of belief in you after what seems like a tough year. on YouTube where you feel like no one's watching, you're struggling, and then all of a sudden,
tell me about
Warner Discovery comes.
Impostor syndrome,
It's like, hey, how about 2 feature films and a 12-episode TV show?
Dude, I thought my mom had come into money and she was paying this back. You know what I mean? Like, to keep me going. No, I couldn't believe that he had reached out and said that he believed in me. It's always been like a person that's believed in me. It's weird, eh? It's always been like Casey, it's been Tom, it's been this guy Tim that gave me the chance on the Tusker ad, and then I did the Discovery show, and that was awesome because they just gave me the free reins to. I worked with this guy Tom, and technically his job is to like sign off on everything and make sure. And usually, I guess the client in that regard would be the red tape and someone to be like, no, I hate that. He was just such a big fan of what we were doing. He was like, he would literally watch reviews and go, I love it. Like, that's it. Yeah.
Did you have to do like a bunch of, like the thing that freaks me out, there's this really interesting concept that we were talking about before you came in. Like if we got an email from Netflix saying, let's take this talk show and let's put it on Netflix. Let's make something like David Letterman's My Next Guest, but for creators. There's no possible way I would say no. Like I would be like, that sounds amazing. Let's do it. But I also know in my head that working with a streamer is really challenging. And it's like nothing like what we do here. Is that accurate in your experience with Discovery? Like when I hear about that, I'm like, okay, there's going to be a ton of legal review. We're going to have to blur out a ton of logos. We're going to have to get location releases everywhere. We're gonna,
definitely.
Like for me, my mind gets overwhelmed by that concept and then, you know, the notes from the stream. Like,
and that's also been our experience when we have made things for TV.
Sure.
Before is that it's becomes quickly a nightmare scenario where you've lost complete control.
Definitely.
Over everything.
You see, what's interesting is I came from there. So I built my company Joe based off of that. So we do a lot of service work. Service work meaning production companies that want to come and work in Cape Town, and we'll service the job for them. So we organize all the bits and bobs, and so I've got really smart producers and people that do all that stuff. They you know, the content buyers and whatever, and people, product placement and continuity, and so we did it. Like when we started with the Discovery stuff, we had to do a bunch of training on like what to and what not to say with regards to just how to conduct ourselves on set, and then also what to say with inside of the films. And I pushed back on most of it because I'd been developing this thing alongside with Tom. So like a lot of the things in the beginning, they didn't want me to say fuck, you know, and I was like, but I always say that. You know,
but it's my favorite word.
People are gonna be like, that's not,
it's not authentic.
Doesn't sound right. And they were like, okay, we'll beep it out. And then I think I got to keep it on my YouTube channel, the stuff I uploaded, but they had to beep it out on
Discovery.
On Discovery, I think. Something like that. Then there's certain things like my cuts are too fast, so they could give somebody an epileptic fit.
Whoa.
But I was like, why the fuck does YouTube not have that thing in it?
Yeah, interesting.
You know what I mean?
That sounds like a problem, yeah.
Because you would run stuff through, it's called like tech something. It's like a tech check. You run it through there and then it gets a sign off. It's just like a computer that looks at it.
Wow, so the pace of the cuts was too fast.
Yeah, on all of my videos, always, comes back and it's like epilepsy warning. I'm like, geez. And then we have to go back and really slow the cuts down. So that's something they won't put it out on TV if that's the case. Like they can't just like, so there's that. There's like red tape. I would say if you didn't have a relationship with somebody, like I really developed a strong relationship with Tom before going ahead. If it was like you were working with a bunch of execs, then you would lose complete control of your show.
Yeah.
And you would just become something purely for views for that streamer. Yeah. And you just a pawn.
And you don't even know how it performs.
And they're selling your content. They content buyers, and then they own your stuff in perpetuity, and they're selling it off in different territories.
Right.
You don't even know what's going on. Yeah. So
that show was pretty YouTube focused. Like I remember Logan Paul was in an episode.
Oh yeah.
Right? There was an episode with Logan. There was an episode with Casey.
Yeah. Casey's in one, Logan, yeah.
What was I'm just curious, like during this time of like ups and downs on YouTube and then going to Discovery, what was Casey's advice to you? Did you turn to him for advice?
I always do. Yeah.
Because I know you wrote a blog post about 10 things you learned from Casey, which I have those 10 things written out here. But I'm curious about like,
what I write there again?
I'll read it to you. I think it's really funny.
No.
But first, I'm curious, like during this time, did you turn to him for advice on how to grow your YouTube channel? Because your guys' styles are very different.
Yeah. You know what he said? He was like, you should create a product out of macadamia nuts that has caffeine in them, tastes really good, and will fuel you.
So is this the point of the show where we're going to find out about the Bru Bars?
No, it's still going to be in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a separate thing.
I mean, because I actually do want to, like, I would love to eat one.
But
you can't. AVD, bro.
Yeah, you're right.
You want everyone to stop
Stay
listening?
together.
You want
to
them to
do
just
it
stop
as
listening?
ASMR. We're going to have to take these things off and really get into
Make
it.
a song out of it.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Don't get me started.
Okay, all right.
Bro, we'll be here for 3 weeks. Yeah.
Dan just lives here making a song.
Yeah. He arrived tomorrow morning and my shirt's off. I'm like hitting the wall.
We just like can't get him to leave.
Yeah, no, you won't. Don't get me
Record the
started,
next
bro.
interview with the next guest, and he's like still here.
No, dude, I will be.
He's getting diegetic sound from the other guest.
In there, like, say that again. Like, you see me coming through the side.
We're just like, sorry, he won't. We can't get him to leave.
He lives there now.
He's been here since we recorded.
The answer to the question, where is Dan Mace? You know, he's
dude,
on our couch.
yeah.
He's on our couch. We have
Still
him.
making the like never-ending
He's
song.
still capturing diegetic sound.
Fuck, dude. Fucking hell, bro.
So
Yeah.
Casey's advice to you at that time.
Before going over to Discovery.
Yeah, just like during that ups and downs of YouTube, like obviously with a seasoned YouTube vet or someone who had like really found success on YouTube, I'm sure given your relationship, he was like, hey, Dan, try this. Or if you asked him, what should I do?
The weirdest thing that ever happened with Casey was, this was in 2019. I came to LA to come visit him. And the only Casey that I knew was the guy that would be like, if he came to pick me up, there would be like a camera in the front, there'll be a camera on the seat, and we would be going somewhere where I have no idea, but I'll just have to get ready to shoot. And he comes and picks me up. I'm like ready, bro. Yeah. I'm like, I'll do anything. I got my helmet on, like the whole thing. Get in the car, and I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, we're going surfing. I'm like, okay, cool, bro. Like, what is it about? He's like, no, we're going surfing. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, bro, it's Thursday. That's what I do here in LA. We go surf. I'm like, you being serious? What happened to my old friend?
Yeah.
So I think at that time, Casey had just completely stopped uploading. He moved here. His whole, like, he's changed since then as well. So before he was like super nonstop, and then LA changed. He was like very chill, just like surf a lot. Now he's back New York, grind, hustle, back to the other Casey version. But his advice, I remember speaking to him about the thing about, I was like, there's this thing that's going to happen with Discovery. And he was like hesitant about it. He was like, are you sure that it's going to happen though, kind of thing. And he was like, if it does, fuck, that sounds amazing. You should definitely do it. Casey's always supported me much more as a filmmaker than a YouTuber. He would just be like, dude, your videos are fucking great. You know, just keep making them. Like, you just got to keep making them. Like, fuck the views. And then I would want to be like, fuck you. Like, you making great videos and you getting views.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you figure that one out? You know? So a lot of, his comments were always like, just keep on making great videos and stop worrying about the views. But then I was always like, yeah, but you're still getting views.
So what are you hiding?
If you weren't getting views and you're in my boat, what's your, like, you know?
So if you're sort of struggling to be creatively validated by YouTube, you move to Discovery. Do you finally, at the end of that, get a sense of creative validation or an alignment of purpose?
No. It never
where
ends.
does that go?
I wrote it in my blog recently. I think I described it as like the mirage of a finish line. Just like keeps on getting further and further away. Like the anticipation of something happening is what makes it exciting. That's why it's so hard to finish a film. I find it so difficult to finish a film because, one, I'm scared shitless to put it live. And two, it's also very difficult to say goodbye to something that you've been doing. So like I find the last 5% of the film taking the longest to do. So with your editor, you need to be like, remember what Dan said, just fucking get through that shit. That last 5% is probably what's bottlenecking you guys right now. But yeah, I think like I try and hold on to that anticipation a lot more. And then when it finally gets there and it gets to the point and the film's finally done, it's never good enough, you know? And then you release it and people could celebrate that one, but I'm already worried about the next one. Yeah. I read something the other day. It was like, my film would never be complete if I didn't have a deadline, you know, like as a filmmaker. That is inevitable. If the client didn't say it had to be done on this day, like it would just forever be in this constant loop of trying to better it.
For sure.
So yeah, with Discovery, I got through the show and I knew that I was going to move to LA and make this feature film called The Afronauts, about these 4 guys that from Uganda. It was based off of a Times magazine article about the worst 100 ideas of the century. And one of them was about the Ugandan space program, which was very funny. And in the 80s, or the late 70s, early 80s, Idi Amin, who was a terrible dictator, decided he wanted to join the space race. So he created this space academy where people would wear like tinfoil hats and shit. It's insane. He would roll them down the hills in barrels and everything. And I thought that was a really interesting story. And anyways, we slowly got this thing developed. And one of the Bru Show episodes was a development piece for Warner Brothers Discovery, where we went out to go find out the realities of the situation in Uganda. And they bought it and they were like, cool, this is a done deal, it's happening. So off I go, I say, fuck you, YouTube. I'm going to Hollywood. I'm going to be a director now and I'm going to make this feature.
Were you like prepared to make a feature film? Like, I don't even know how that works to make like a long form feature film. You feel like you felt very prepared to do that.
Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, back from where I'd come from, that was always the goal.
Got it.
Also, when here in Hollywood, as a first time director, you usually get paired with a production company that would guide you really well through the process. They can't hedge a bet. So yeah, and the fact that we had gotten it over the line, which is the hardest part, especially here in LA, there's a lot of yeses and all of them mean no.
Yeah.
Like for 10 yeses you hear, like, you know, maybe one is a real yes. So what happened is when I came to Los Angeles, and I said, screw you, YouTube, which now I feel like really weird about because I'm back here. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for always having my back, like always accepting me every time I come back.
Good to have you in your bars here.
So yeah, the merger happened at the worst time possible between Warner Brothers and Discovery, and we had just read an article about Batgirl getting shit canned. So what was happening is David Zaslav was just shit canning a whole bunch of things for tax write-offs. And we were so scared our film was going to get made and never see the light of day. So we bought it back from Discovery. And now we like shopping around Hollywood to try and get this thing bought. And there was a lot of different buyers that were keen. like I said, everyone's saying, yes, we'll get back to you in a week. We'll get back to you now. And this is in like August last year, 2022. And then I was like, nah, I'm fucked. Like I'm starting to dig into my savings. I haven't uploaded a YouTube video. I've said, fuck you, YouTube. You know, what am I going to do now?
No VPNs
to
talk about. Yeah.
VPN numbers have gone down. Like
everyone's already got one.
Dude, you know the emails that you usually just immediately delete and click archive? I'm going through those.
Hi, influencer.
Yeah.
Do you want to see
Hi,
our
Dan Mace channel? Yeah. And like, oh, dude. And
that's a dark place if you're reading those emails.
Oh, dude, dark.
That's dark.
And then if you respond, dude, way dark.
You may just be getting scammed.
Oh, bro, at that point, I'm not going back to the jams, dude.
Yeah.
So I came to New York, and my intent was I was going to start YouTubing again for like the 5th time. And I spoke to Casey, and he was like, dude, what are you doing? You know, like you're just bouncing back and forth. And I was in a room that was way too expensive in downtown New York. And I was just extending my time, waiting for something to happen, because I was like, life is
What
just...
were you waiting to happen in New York?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Just this thing.
And what is your wife saying to you at this time? Is
She's like, come back to South Africa. And I'm like, no, I'm going to make it. I'm waiting. No, I was waiting for a phone call to come through from a buyer for the film.
Okay.
And I needed to be in
the States.
So I could fly to LA, but I couldn't make content in LA. I could only make it in New York, because it's difficult for me to make the kinds of films that I make in Los Angeles. So yeah, and I also felt that I just needed to be around a mentor, and Casey was very open to helping me like figure things out. And Jimmy phones out of the blue, dude, at like, I don't even know, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. I see on my phone, it just says Jimmy Beast, because I'd saved his number like that. And he's like, yo, I want to speak to you about an opportunity. And I was like, okay. And then I remember thinking like, fuck, maybe I should film this. This would be cool for a video, but I think it's like illegal to do that. I don't know.
Right.
But I still did.
But you did it.
I still filmed it. But I don't have that footage anymore, I don't think.
It's in a YouTube video.
Yeah. Fuck.
Guilty.
We got
Jimmy
him.
signed off on it, okay? I'm pretty sure. No. I still have that footage. Nothing bad was said. I don't think. So I got a camera. I was like, oh my gosh, Jimmy phoned me. At least if nothing comes out of this, I could say Jimmy phoned me and put it in a video and maybe get 10,000 views. I don't know what the thought back then was. But he phoned me and he said, do you, like the Beast Philanthropy channel is lacking a little bit, and we want to try you out on a video. What do you think about that? And I thought, fuck. I went over and looked at the current state of the Beast Philanthropy videos, and they were just really bad, the way that they'd been done. And then again, now back at that thing where like the phone could ring at any point and I could sell my feature, or Jimmy's like, give me an answer. So we spoke for a while, and he was like, look, you know, I want to try you out on this thing, and it wasn't a done deal. And he said, you know, let me know like tomorrow or the next day or whatever. And I was like, fuck. Then Renée Zelwegger and myself were going to make a film. And that was going to be a short film.
Different film?
This is a different film.
Okay.
Which had just then gone over the line. So like in one day, I have these two opportunities. The Renée Zelwegger it was a short film, but it would have led to a huge thing in my career. And and it was a short film called Umbrella. And we just didn't have a shoot date yet because she was being blocked off for another film that she's currently working on now. But we knew that it had to happen in the first block of 2023. So at the beginning of this year, kind of the first quarter, like it would have to happen in maybe February. So that was happening. The feature film we had bought back from Discovery. And now I've got like 3-4 months and I don't really know what's happening yet. We're trying to sell the other feature. The film with Renée, we're getting funding for, but I'm not really going to make too much money out of it. So I decided to move to New York. And at that time, I didn't know for how long. I just wanted to make a couple of videos and then see, circle through the old brand deal things, phone up the, hey bro, do you have a deal for me? Hey SeatGeek, remember 9 years ago?
Yeah. I'm back.
I'm back and this time for good. Yeah. And yeah, so I made a couple of videos. I was making enough money. I mean, I was doing, what the normal rate you would get for a brand deal. And I was doing like a couple 100,000 views a video then still, so that was fine. And then I realized like it was getting toward the end. I just didn't know what to do. I was going to fly back to South Africa. Gabs, my wife, was like, I'm out of here. And she left.
She was with you in New York?
Yeah, she flew to New York.
Okay.
Because I was, at that point again, I'd hit like another down.
Yeah.
My feature wasn't happening. This thing with Renée, which sounded really exciting. Again, like I said, there's a lot of yeses.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, is it going to happen? Isn't it going to happen? But then I get told on this day that the Renée film is happening, and it's happening on the end of November. It's like the 25th of November. There's a time where we needed to be in Canada. There was a road that we needed to shoot on, and she's free, and that's when we're going to shoot it. And that day, and dead ass, like this is probably 2 a.m. that morning, Jimmy phones and offers me this opportunity to shoot a Beast Philanthropy video. And I'm like, when is the video? And he's like, well, it happens from middle of November till like the 5th or 6th of December. So I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
This old situation again. And I also I didn't know if the feature was going to sell yet. And there had been a lot of people, like the feature was sitting with everyone. The other feature, my feature, the Afronauts. And Jimmy was like, we need the philanthropy videos are lacking. And I went to go look at the videos. I don't know if you saw the old Beast Philanthropy videos.
Yeah.
And I don't want to throw shade on anyone, but they were just really bad. They were done it was distasteful for the
subject matter.
Yeah. What it was. And it needs craft and beauty and art. It needs to transform the audience and have the correct emotion. So I looked at it and I was like, oh. And I spoke to Casey, obviously, as well about that. And it all came down to like how much of my own style I'd be able to put into those videos. Because if I was just going to be making those same kinds of videos, it would have been, I probably wouldn't have gone ahead and done it. And Jimmy was like, you got to let me know tomorrow. And I was like, fuck, bro. And in all honesty, I wasn't going to do it.
You weren't going to do Beast Philanthropy.
No.
You were going to do the Renée Zelwegger.
Yeah. Because I was like, that's the only thing that makes sense. It's because if I had to think about it, also it wasn't like going to be a long-term thing. They were going to try me out on one job.
Right.
And I was also like, my thought at the time was, this is really bad, but I'll be honest with you. I was like, I'm just going to try and charge them a fuckload. And they can always say no. And if they say yes, well, then at least I've got enough money to like get through the next thing, and I'll explain it to Renee or whatever. I don't know, like try and get through. So I came in like so high for this video, and Jimmy phoned me back and he was like, dude, maybe like, let's pull it back for this one. Let's bring it back a bit there. And because as you know, obviously for the philanthropy videos, there's no revenue. Like everything that's generated goes into the project. So what I get paid to make the films comes out of Jimmy's pocket, comes out of their main channel, whatever it is, which I didn't know at the time. I didn't know much about Beast Philanthropy at all. I'm
also safe to assume you didn't really sleep much that night.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I put myself in your shoes.
I was going back and forth, and I was thinking like, shit, like my one chance also with someone like Renee and the other people that were involved and the execs and all these people I'd been speaking to, and what if I do a good job? Do I continue with them? Do I screw everything up?
It's fascinating that you've been faced with this multiple times in your career, and that it's emblematic of the moment in time for, filmmakers of like, do I go this way and go to Hollywood, or do I go this way and go to YouTube in the future?
I've had one foot on each side of the fence for so long.
It's fascinating that you represent that, and your story has so many of these forks.
Yeah. And then Darren phoned me. And if Darren hadn't phoned me, Darren phoned me like much later. And Darren's the one who sold me on it.
Wow.
Hearing Darren's passion sounds like a terrible word. His devotion to wanting to utilize YouTube as a platform to generate awareness to a younger generation and just like our generation, that to showcase that you don't have to start off a charity, you can just become a part of one or donate to one, or to create videos to raise money to help more people. And he explained this to me like Darren does in a very long-winded way. It was like a 2-hour-long phone call. But he got really emotional on the phone. And I was like, geez, this person really fucking cares. And something in me was like, fuck, this just feels right. What if I can make a film that's good as a film? I'd look at it and I'd be like, this is the same as like Gift. Like it's a film that really makes me feel good, but at the same time it's also doing good, and I'm getting paid to do it. Like I'm getting the same amount of money that I would be doing if I was off doing a feature kind of thing. That was the hope, that was the goal. After my conversation with Darren, that's kind of what I thought if I said yes. So I hedged my bet and I said I'll do it, and then it was, remember, only for that one film. Then I phoned the executive producer that was going to do the film with Renee, and they were like, "No, it's not happening.
Like you're not going to shoot that.
No,
like you're shooting.
You have chosen something else.
Yeah,
like your chances. It's finished. Like that's it. And I think that was just because of the fact that it was that time span. It's not they weren't salty about the fact that it's just you get like one shot with these kinds of people, with someone of such high stature. And I've got major respect for Renee for even just spending some time with me. So yeah, I'd given up on that. And then
did you feel okay about that?
No, not at all. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, because it sounds kind of similar to when you
Yeah, so that it comes up late. Like
it's interesting because I would have thought in that moment you go shoot the thing with Renee and then you hop on the next Beast Philanthropy video because it's still a test.
They needed the film. So what happens with Beast Philanthropy is a project happens on a certain date, and because like we can't fake it, or it's not like a film shoot. If we're doing something like for this one, it was building an orphanage, the construction and stuff, everything takes so long to set up to the point. So they break ground on date X, and then remember we're dealing with real people and real things. So we can't have a bunch of kids that don't have homes and then be like, oh, just wait another 2 days because we need to film something else and then come in. So like the difficulties with it is ensuring that we make a really fantastic film, but also that we don't hinder any of the process as it would happen if there wasn't cameras there. So with the orphanage, these were the set dates that we would have had to make that film. And they were going to roll into the new year with this new decision of if things are going to change.
Got it.
And then it got told, then once I was making the film, it was kind of like another film was coming up where they were giving away a bunch of shoes, like 20,000 shoes. And they had another crew shooting that. And then Darren was like, maybe you would want to jump on the edit of this. So then I started to think like, oh, maybe there is something that's going to happen here. And then Jimmy was like, do you want to come to Antarctica? I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like all of this is like, now I'm going to Antarctica, and there's like this whole like beast thing that's happening. I don't even know what's going on now. So I did the orphanage job, and I went all out. Like I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to redesign the whole thing. So I looked at the way that the animations had been done. I went as far as just redesigning their logo for them as well. I just went full tilt. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try my hardest. And I remember finishing the film and actually for the first time in maybe 3 or 4 years looking at a piece of my work and going like, this is fantastic. Actually, fuck, I didn't say fantastic. That makes me sound like such a dick. I was like, to me, this is nice.
You liked it. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
it was good. Yeah. You were proud of yourself.
It could be
I didn't
fantastic.
say fantastic from someone else's eyes, okay?
Did you say exquisite, maybe?
Yeah. Divine?
Hey, what is synonyms? Where's ChatGPT at? No, I said that I really felt like that moved me. We score all our own music as well.
Fully original music in all of those?
Every single film, yeah. So, yeah.
Wasn't the Antarctica video, though, this is now on the main channel, wasn't that Hans Zimmer?
Yeah, that's Hans Zimmer. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I saw it at the end, it's like so casual. It's like music by Hans Zimmer. And you're like, wait, what?
That's Shawn Hendricks who hooks all that up. Yeah,
That's
it's crazy like that. Yeah, so everything that we do on Beast Philanthropy is scored, and it's an amazing way to make films, the kind of system we've set up. But so we tried it with that one. And I went to Greenville and showed Jimmy the film. And Darren was like, don't worry, like with Jimmy's super busy always. And like he watches the film, and there's nothing worse than when you play someone a film and they press pause, like, well, you're busy playing the film. I don't know if you've ever had that before.
I mean, I'm guilty of doing that. So
because you like analyzing, you're helping someone else, or you're giving feedback to your editors, right? But if you dare do that to Casey, you'll cut your finger off, I reckon. Like he's playing you one of these videos and you speak or you like press pause like that.
And you go, see right there, that cut.
No.
You can't do that.
You watch the thing through first without anything being said.
Got it.
Which is it's the way that it used to be.
Yeah.
Just out of just appreciation of like someone spending so much time.
Yeah.
But I remember getting like 5 seconds into the video and Jimmy like presses pause. I'm like, fuck. And he goes back. And he presses pause. And he's like, he goes again. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, like, can he say something? And then he stopped pressing pause. And like maybe 2 minutes in, he shed a tear watching this video. And he was like, I can't even remember what he said. I was just so stoked then. He was like, it's really beautiful or whatever. And he was like, let's turn this into a long-term thing. Like right then and there. And then he said, how much do you want?
Right there?
Right there at the table.
Man.
Yeah. And Darren's looking at me. And I don't know if you know Steele. Steele's looking at me. And we in his house, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my head's going crazy, bro. I'm like, fuck, what do I do? And I come up with a figure, like very quickly, like by doing all kind of math. And I push it a little bit higher than I would. And I drop the figure. And he's like, cool, done. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I
should have doubled the figure.
Darren, yeah, exactly. Like, it just could have been done. Like, but anyways, I'm stoked for the fact that I'm able to be paid to be able to make these kinds of films is insane.
It's also a testament to Jimmy's authentic care for these types of films, right? And obviously, like, we all know Jimmy personally, but the world looks at Jimmy and some of the charitable work that he does as purely for viewership, right? Like I'm sure you've read the headlines and the pushback, course, even like the most recent video, which was a great video, the Wells video. That was a great video. He even tweeted preemptively. He was like, I know what you guys are going to say. I know what's going to be said.
Yeah,
and then it did get said. Yeah, and then it did get said.
Of course.
What's your POV on that of like, because again, you're intimately involved in the process of making content that's philanthropic or around the philanthropy that you guys are doing, where, you know, the world looks at it as, oh, you know, this guy's just doing this for attention and for views.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, if you look at it, we need to generate views in order to generate revenue in order to do more.
Right.
So there is the discussion of going, well, is this a once off? Is it something that's like also done as a seeking attention, and it's going to like we going and building 100 walls that are just going to fall to pieces, and there was no real effort put into the development behind and you know, the longevity. Like Darren started building the first walls 2 years ago or so, 2.5 years ago, but not to beat on the wall side of things. I think that people misunderstand, and that's why we keep on at the end of the Beast Philanthropy videos just saying, remember that if you can't donate, if you can't purchase maybe a piece of merchandise, just share or like, because each and every dollar that we earn from this video goes back into the charity. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like, fuck those people. Like, you know, no matter in which way you want to, how you want to help, we will always get some sort of negative kickback. And Darren gets bleak about it every time.
Yeah.
I love Darren to bits. He obviously gets bummed about it. And I just kind of take it with a pinch of salt. Cause
I mean, when you're reaching that many people, you know.
Yeah. You're also funding the philanthropy in a way that the majority, if not all the people in the industry, really don't understand. Like, it is a first of its kind sort of way to fund philanthropy on a really large scale.
I totally get where some people are coming from.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we need to, that's why at the end of the videos, we keep on saying what we say, but a lot of those kinds of people, they don't get there to the end.
Yeah.
To hear that, but eventually it will become more known, and people like, you know, we've got such a strong audience of people that stand behind what we're doing, that they sort of answer that for us. If you go and look at like people that try and slam us for helping people drink water, okay, like there's an army of people that understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then you know, they stand up for us and have to, we don't have to go through, and Darren doesn't have to read the comments and get all bleak. And
so in that moment when Jimmy says, cool, done, and you get the job, what's the emotion there? Are you like, this is my thing now? Like, this is my ticket? Or are you kind of like, are you like, well, I was going to go to Hollywood? Like, are you mixed? Is your emotion mixed, or is it like, no, this is great. I'm happy.
The way that he said done to me like asking for this amount of money, I was a little bit bleak that I didn't ask for more. But then I remember because Darren and I had driven there together, and we got back in the car afterwards and we were both very silent, because I'd mentioned to Darren on the way there, like, I wonder how this is going to go. And Darren's like, I'm very nervous, because like Darren's like, I really want this to work.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's Jimmy's decision if, you know, we're going to move you forwards and you're going to become chief creative officer and take over at Beast Philanthropy. But he's like, it might take some time, you know. And I'm thinking, fuck, or, you know, time, that's not good. And I was hella nervous before showing Jimmy that. Like when he was watching and pressing pause and stuff, and then when I saw him like smiling and there was like a little tear and stuff watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. And when he said done to the deal, and I'd gotten over the fact that I could have gotten more, and we walked back to the car, it was silent. We get in the car, and like Darren gave out like a little squeak. I'm not even lying. He was like, yes. And I was like, yes. And we're like in the car going like, yeah. And I just thought, can you imagine like Jimmy's like standing out the window, like, guys, you left your car key or something, like you left your phone. But yeah, we celebrated in the car. Darren and I have this camaraderie that's like really special. And we were both just so happy. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And then around March hit the first low again of when I got approached with the fact that the feature could have gone forwards.
The
Afronauts feature. Yeah. And that's when we had made about 3 Beast Philanthropy films, and I was kind of on a film by film basis at that point. I hadn't signed a lengthy sort of contract, so I could have just walked away really if I wanted to. I think in America you can just, I don't know how it works here. In South Africa, staff is different, but I think here you can just get like fired. Like they can point at you and be like, leave. You can't do that in South Africa. But yeah, I could have walked away and gone and done the feature. And that was when, and Darren and I had, like, we were 3 months into our working relationship. So it was like trying to figure out this Beast Philanthropy thing, and going like, we were getting more views than we thought we were, and how long are we going to make the videos? And there was like a little bit of conflict here and there. And there was a moment we had our first ever fight outside the Studio C. Can I say Studio C? I don't know if people know what that is.
I think that's probably fine.
Yeah.
We were parked outside Studio C in the same car that we had celebrated in. He's got this red Tesla. And 3 months later, we're in there arguing. And again, it was my own internal debate of like, fuck, I could go off and do this feature film. Or if I say no now, this is the last time I probably could ever say no, or this opportunity will come around. And I just opened up to Darren and said that. And he said, well, I'm not going to hold you back. I was like, fuck. I thought he was going to offer me more money or something.
And he's like, yeah, go.
Yeah, he's like, go ahead, man.
He was like, look, this is an amazing thing that's happening here, and I can see what will happen down the line, and I love working with you, but I can't hold you back, which is such wise, and like I hate him for it because it's just like the best thing to say. You know, I really wish that he would have gotten angry or something. You know?
Yeah,
I didn't know
easier. It gives you permission to then go, okay, well, fuck you. I'll go make a Hollywood movie.
So he made that decision so much harder. I was like, fuck, this guy's so nice. And then, yeah, once again, beep, 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 Casey, I need your help again. He's always, I mean, he's advice. I don't think I've never not taken Casey's advice. I've blindly followed everything that Casey has advised me on, actually. And it's always irritates me to say it's turned out the right thing, you know. Because he's just always so goddamn right, eh? Fuck.
So what did he say in this?
How he does it.
What did he say in this context?
He told me to stick with it. Yeah. He said, this is a sure thing. And you've never done something for a long period of time before. And stick to it and see what happens. But like, you got to stop bouncing all over the place. And he was like, I'll maybe send you the actual text, but his words were something like, you got a really, really good thing going here. It's safe. It's secure. You've got a son on the way, because I knew that, you know. So it was also job security.
Yeah.
He's like, you helping people, and you have a lot of creative freedom to make these films in the way in which you want to make them, and they're really fucking good films. So that made it pretty easy for me to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's very, it's great to have that sounding board that comes from a really human, rational point of view, because as the creative, it's easy to be irrational with the things you want to make and the things you think should be made and exist in the world. But when you have a kid on the way and it's just nice to have someone who knows you that well. Who's like, hey,
gone through it.
You've been moving around a lot.
Yeah.
And that's not helping you.
I also think as creatives, at least I experienced this a lot and still at times do, where you look at opportunities as like your ticket to make it. And you can never understand, like you said, the finish line is always getting pushed. So you can never understand if you've made it. Like, is this where you're supposed to arrive as a creative?
It's fucking interesting, eh?
Right? And you look at opportunity as like, oh, there's my ticket to go and make it. You know, like making the Hollywood movie, that's making it.
Then what?
Right? And so when you get tickets, you need that sounding board of the person who has gotten a lot of tickets. You know, like Casey's gotten a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
That sounding board to go, what does this even mean? You know, like, what does it even mean to get this ticket? Is this a ticket I should take or not? And you have to like settle as a creative to recognize that you yourself are the ticket.
Yeah.
It's not the external factors, right?
Yeah. I think, great advice I once got from Casey too is he was like, look, you the kind of person who can get dropped off with nothing in the middle of a city with a camera and a computer to edit with, and you'll find a way of making it. And like thinking about it like that, then I, you know, and hearing that from a filmmaker that's so well renowned, you know, as a filmmaker, and that was a lot of validation for me and affirmation to realize like, okay, there's a skill set and a talent here that I can invent something with a camera and a computer to edit with, and I'll always be okay. Like no matter how badly if I do make the wrong choice and I fuck something up, I can always reinvent myself.
Yeah.
However, like let's not waste our time.
Yeah.
You know, and try and make those wise decisions.
You also never know who's watching. If you think back to when Tim was his name from Discovery. Tom. You think? Sorry, Tom.
Jeez. Jesus, man.
Dude,
Promote the bars.
Now we're definitely not getting a Warner deal. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So you think back to when Tom reached out.
Yeah.
You had no idea.
No,
sorry,
I'm joking. Yeah, you're saying.
Yeah, like you just never know who's watching. You may think there's a right decision, a wrong decision, but if you put yourself in a place where you're making work that you're proud of, you don't even know at the tail end of this Beast Philanthropy. One, if there will be a tail end, maybe you'll do this for years and years to come. But two, you don't know who's watching. and who will reach out and see the next chapter of your story.
I promise you that's the, like, where it's come from is, like, views are one thing. But if you're making work with substance and meaning, like the stuff that you guys are doing, and I hear, like, every time you bring on a creator, massive creators, they all say, I watch your guys' show. You guys aren't sitting with 25 million subscribers, but yet your network is of 500 million subscribers because the people that you know and the dots that you can connect. Because you're sitting with intelligent people, you're asking wise questions, and you're teaching those other people that don't know about those different avenues. And with, say, philanthropy, the upside is that the views are so high, which is great. But even if they weren't, the kinds of people that are watching those films are really people that matter in the sense of they value doing better shit for the earth, you know, and those are the people that you want in your corner, especially the ones that want to sponsor videos like that.
Right.
You know, even if, for instance, like, which I don't see it happening, and I hope it didn't, was, you know, the relationship split between Beast Philanthropy and myself. Still, the right people would have seen the films that I made for Beast Philanthropy, and it's been a really great positioning point. And then I would probably go off into documentaries that are about betterment of the earth and that sort of thing. Yeah. Philanthropic based stuff for sure.
I'm also curious, just like functionally, how it works, because you're the chief creative officer of Beast Philanthropy, but you're also running a production company called Joe Films.
Sure.
So is Joe Films the production company behind Beast Philanthropy, or is that separate?
It's separate. So I hire Joe to help with the films.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How much of Joe's, and maybe you can tell me this, maybe you can't, but how much of Joe Films' business is Beast Philanthropy?
100%.
100%. Got it. Interesting.
And in the beginning, we were trying to figure it out because we didn't have, and like the great thing with Jimmy and Darren is, like, we can be 100% transparent and open with the books. I could be like, look, we need X amount to cover overhead for Joe. But we don't need, you know, I'm not in a position where I'm money hungry and or whatever. So we need X amount of profit. And if you want Joe's full attention for these films, we're going to need to be paid X.
Yeah.
So my salary is here. Joe's service charge will be this. And that's the amount that we'll get per film. So they've got the entirety of Joe, which is great because I also get to build the culture of Joe.
Right. You have a list of things you learned from Casey, which we'll talk about as we have Bru Bars later. If you were to make a list of things that you've learned from Jimmy, whether that's in watching edits or storytelling or the way he operates and operates at such scale, what have you learned now from working with MrBeast?
Dude, you didn't read blog post number 2.
I don't have that printed out.
It's on the blog, dude.
I didn't print it out, so I didn't know that was there. I have the Casey.
I'll try to remember. No. Wow. Jimmy is complex, as you know.
Yeah.
Jimmy, like, I mean, it depends in which way you want to look at it. Like, if you're looking at from just a YouTube growth standpoint, or as a business scalability standpoint, or as a human being standpoint, you know, there's like 3 different things. Where I think in the Casey 10 parts, it's like all 3 of those together. Jimmy's still, I think, at what, he's 25 now.
Yeah.
So he is the, without a doubt, genius of YouTube content creation. So he has so much, there's countless to talk about and what to learn from that aspect. I don't know from Jimmy on a mentorship angle, advice that one would possibly ask that's like life advice.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know him in that way. We spend a lot of time together, but I've never actually, and it's interesting to think that I've never just gone down that route with him at all. We always only purely speak business.
What about though, like notes on videos? Like, have you learned anything in the way he story tells and the way he?
Sure. So it's what's crazy is with philanthropy is it's an overlap of what his input and my input, and we've kind of created a hybrid. Obviously, his say goes always,
sure.
And I would never challenge what he has to say. Like, I mean, it's just pointless. It's like, you know, what he says is gonna work. But sometimes there's a couple of things where it'll be like, can I make this change? It'll be like, but it'll take 2 days, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's just not worth it. Maybe either. But what I've learned is when things are just like, you get something called a know-y video. It's like where you already know what's going to happen in the video. How do you get through that? And for example, okay, let's take a video called we gave away 20,000 shoes in Africa. So now you already know, like before you've even clicked on the video. Now, to open up that, so I wrote this line at the beginning of that film, which was the only thing standing in the way between education and 100,000 or 300,000 kids in Africa is a simple pair of shoes. Now you go, okay, I'm invested into finding out why they gave away these pairs of shoes. And it's not so much about the shoes, but it's more about the why. So that's, but prior that, I would never have known how to get over that gap, you know, because the previous Beast Philanthropy videos would have just started out from the get-go. You know, it's the same thing as you saw in the Wells video. Once you saw one well, they needed to be a whole bunch of other elements that happened for you to be more and more excited to see more and more wells being built. But what I've learned from Jimmy, I think number one is collaborate versus compete. We speak about, you know, the idea of rather competing with other creators. He tends to collaborate with like anyone that he can.
Right. And
maybe that is because he is just so big. But I think even prior to that, he was always just collaborating with people. Whether it's he helps out when he can, he's always down to get onto a phone call with somebody. He's always on the phone.
Yeah,
with
he's
somebody.
always on the phone. I was in that lineup. I've gone in and out of that phone lineup based on how much I pick up, but he'll go on a walk and just go through a rotation of calling people.
Yeah. So he's always, either if it's helping someone out by putting them in a short or a vertical, or you know, platforming somebody on his main channel. He does more so that than try and compete with anybody else. I think identifiable characters is a very big one for his main channel videos. That helps you to be able to create more than just a singular character. So now you've got, like in Friends, or David Dobrik did it really well.
You mean identifiable characters like repeat characters that have distinct personalities? Carl Nolan.
You can describe. Tariq, you can. So Tariq, you defined as this camera operator who also then integrates himself as a friend, and you know, he's there. Cole's you can identify with. Chris, same thing.
Nolan.
Chandler, Nolan. And I've watched Nolan's development right from the start when he came in, and it's been very interesting to see. So he's created these identifiable characters that stick to these certain marks,
archetypes,
and people get to either like them or not. And now you're starting to develop and appeal to a much wider audience because you've got a bunch of people. Someone be like, I'm a Nolan fan, you know, like screw Cole or whatever. Someone's like, no, screw you. I love Cole.
You actually want that. Like you want people to take sides, of course.
Yeah. It's interesting that you were kind of in that position with Casey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, as being like somewhat of a character.
I was the one being like,
space.
who is this Dan guy?
Yeah, get him out of there. Fuck,
More Marlon, less Dan.
Oh, yeah. So identifiable characters is key. And significant moments. I think that there's constant explosions throughout Jimmy, like literal explosions.
Right.
And also just as film school over here would understand, and beat explosions.
There's a lot of diegetic sound, yeah. But if you go back prior to big explosions, like everything's leading up to some significant moment in a Jimmy video. You know? And he's reminding you that there is about to be a significant moment, or that you're waiting for a significant moment. Like in this, like we're all waiting to try a Bru Bar.
A beep.
Yeah. There's a quote that you have that I pulled. I don't know exactly where it's from.
Oh God.
It says, the only person that can edit a film the way that I want it to be edited is myself.
Did I say that? Or did Casey say that?
I mean, here's the thing.
Where did I say that?
Unclear where you said it. I think in an interview with the Heavy Chef.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bro, you guys do your research.
Yes.
Do you want to start again?
Well, no, I mean, that's fine. The only person that can edit a film the way I want it to be edited is myself. You know, I experienced that a lot with Colin.
I should editor.
Every time I edit something, he's like, move. Get out.
No. I mean, quite the inverse. Like for me, the way I want something to be edited, Colin was the only one who could edit that. I couldn't even edit it myself the way I wanted it to be edited. But then when we started to grow, I would, start to bring in editors, and basically we would make something with the editor, and then Colin would just take the timeline, undo what they did, or just start fresh and just do it the way he wanted to do it.
Just trying to maximize efficiency.
Yeah. But I think I imagine that's what Casey's like. I imagine that's what you're like, right? So are you editing all the Beast Philanthropy stuff, or have you learned how to expand your storytelling DNA?
Yeah. So I'll teach you something here. This is a first draft should be used as an example of what it should not look like. And as soon as you start to look at a first draft like that, you'll actually be excited to look at first drafts. First drafts are the worst things to ever look at because they're never the way that you want them to be. You look at it and you go, oh my fuck, I thought this film was going to be great.
Right.
Now I'm looking at this is shit.
Right.
Because these films, we go in, like, it's a very interesting way of making a movie because you as a writer, you want to use like all 40 rhetorical devices in order to amplify absolutely everything, but you can't. We're dealing with real human life. We're dealing with real circumstances. We're dealing with real people's problems. And, you can be this like renegade director and in the fiction realm and be like, yes, like more pain, more sorrow, and like bigger release at the end. But
right.
You can't do that here. So we have the romanticized version of the film. How do we get from explaining the problem, so impact, communication and persuasion. So how do we create this impactful scenario up front and showcase what the issue is? And then how do we communicate that in a way that's not boring, but rather a way that's going to release a lot of oxytocin when we get to that point. And that's transformative when that happens. So we go in with this kind of like roadmap of what we're looking for. We know who the characters are, we know the story, but we never pigeonhole ourselves to a script of being like, this is exactly how we're going to tell the story. So we go in with this kind of like bird's eye view, and then we come back with a bank of footage. And then it's like, oh, fuck.
It's probably so much footage.
Yeah, and there's so many directions. That's what I was saying in this first draft that you look at, there's so much that you can just toss out because you're like, that's useless.
Yeah.
Even though while we were there, everybody looked at each other. We're like, wow, that's a magic moment. That's a great thing. In the grand scheme of things, nobody's going to care. It doesn't make any sense. It's not like what we're going to speak about just now. So when we get back, my office alone is covered in whiteboard, and both post offices are covered in whiteboard, and we just write scripts. That's all we do for most of for like, if I say it's 15 days worth of post, 3 or 4 full days is just writing. So it's writing a line, and we've got AI tools that we use that replicates voices, and we then run those voices back, then we can time them, then we sort of know, okay, for VO it's going to be like this, and then we'll take that and we start to score music to it so we can get a feeling, and we go, and the whole film is done without any B-roll, nothing. And it was the first time I ever started making films that way, was this year, was telling the entirety of the story with VO and then taking segments out of the voxies, and which are just throwaway lines to camera for people who don't understand. And then there's actual sit-down interviews. And a lot of the time what we would have to do, which is quite complicated, would be to get somebody to say something that they're trying to say in a short space of time.
Yeah.
As you guys would know, you said, so then you're like, we got it already.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually people take a minute to get the point across. So we have to like really condense that. So sometimes we have to add in words like and, why, how. So we have to go through their whole interview and
find those words,
find the words, and chop
and
them
stitch
up
it together. Yeah.
So once we've done all of that, the rest of it is easy. Once you've got the music and the narrative, and you can envision what you've been there, we've shot it beautifully already, there's these explosive moments. I mean, then it's like, that's the most beautiful part of editing. Then that last like 20% of that, 30% is so beautiful. I get the best part of the job, doing the last like 4 to 5 days.
Yeah.
So I'm just like adding in things that along with the music, along with the sound.
That's
it's
cool.
like, you watch it back. It's like ecstasy every single time.
I think I'm the opposite. I think that first part is what I consider to be the best part of the job.
Oh, really?
The like writing and the story edit.
And figuring it out.
Putting those puzzle pieces together. That's where I feel really comfortable and what I enjoy, like figuring out that puzzle. And then once that happens, I'm like, all right, let's give it to someone who knows visuals and like can do something, can make it look nice.
Yeah. It's hard for me to think about which part I enjoy the most. Feels like I've been doing this for so long.
Yeah. At some point, it's just what you do.
Yeah.
It's like what you do is you wake up, you think about storytelling, you sit in an office, and whatever story it is, like whether right now it's Beast Philanthropy, that could be the next 20 years of your life. It could be the next 10. And, in 10 years after that, it could be something totally different. And the commonality will be that you wake up in the morning and you think about story structure, think about how to communicate and articulate this emotional concept through the footage and storytelling tools you have. And I think when you sink into that and recognize like, I've just committed my life to this, then no matter what the canvas is or the project is in the moment, the commonality is just like, this is what I do. I'm a storyteller.
Do you ever think that maybe naturally you're just really fucking good at something and you spend 10 years of your life trying to learn how to be better at it to just realize that you were already just as good as you could possibly be at doing that thing?
Yeah, but I think there's always something to experience and learn. And whether it's improving or not, you're just learning new things about it, and you're naturally just getting better at it.
Sure.
Should we eat a Bru Bar?
Oh, we're going to do
Let's
that.
Do it. Let's do it. This is the moment.
Wow.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Okay. So
tell us about these.
What's going on here, Dan? Because your entire career has been leading up to, since the era of the jam salesman, it's been leading up to this.
Yes. No. So, okay. Yeah. So from jams, I was like, how do you create a product that's just so sweet that's not going to explode in the back of your car and look like murder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I met this guy who owns this company called House of Macadamias. Incredible guy. And there's 97 farms in South Africa with macadamia nuts. So there's a surplus of macadamia nuts. But macadamias are the most expensive nut in the world. Except in South Africa, you can just pick up a bag on the side of the road for free because there's too many. So he was like, there's a clear like supply demand issue here, but like the wrong way around.
Yeah.
So how do we fix this? So he created a brand where he makes products out of macadamia nuts and then sells those products. And in order to market macadamias, so macadamia is only 1% of the nut market now, where it will grow into something much more. Yes, I'm also part of House Macadamias, not just Bru Bar.
Yeah,
okay?
got it. Understood.
So yeah, I'm also I help House Macadamias with their creative as well.
Cool.
But
I mean,
come on.
share.
Yeah.
So
we're not going to
Just
eat
kind
a
of like
Bru Bar?
hoarding it over
Yeah.
there.
sorry.
You got so many. We just want to eat one.
No, these are all for you guys.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
well,
I even learned how to like
only
put the
a
thing.
couple feet away here.
Yeah. There you go. Oh.
There you go.
Okay. While we bite into this, though, I did want to read the 10 things you learned from Casey
Okay.
because I have some questions about them. I don't understand all of them.
Oh no.
There's one that I like all of them, but there's one that I really, really resonate with on there.
Okay. I'll read all 10 and then we'll go back.
I
through
made
and
those
talk
all
about
up. Casey didn't say any of that shit.
it. Okay. Casey didn't say so.
That was
Precursor.
ChatGPT.
This is just, yeah. All right.
Oh yeah, I wrote into ChatGPT shit Casey probably
Yeah, 10
would
things Casey
say.
Neistat probably would say.
A
You gotta
fool.
react, dude.
Number one, a fool sleeps when he's tired. A wise man sleeps every moment.
I just give a thumbs up of approval.
I think this is
It
delicious.
tastes kind of jammy.
Yeah,
The
well,
consistency.
You know what I love is the back half. The back half has this incredible coffee taste, but the front half is kind of crunchy, soft at the same time. And in the back half, you get hit with this really nice. It's almost like a flavored coffee, like a frappuccino or something.
it's caramel maca.
Right.
Is there like
great
coconut
time.
in this? What's
There's
in
no
this?
coconut.
No, you're not picking up on.
I'm not picking
you're
up on what
picking
he's
up on
putting
it.
down.
You clearly like if you guys ever split, you should go the food.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll go
I'm
with
not
that.
the guy for this. Yeah.
Okay.
He's the food guy.
Number one, a fool sleeps when he's tired. A wise man sleeps every moment.
Does it say that? It should be when he can.
Okay, maybe I
think
copied
like
these.
did you like write it down when you're really
Okay.
tired?
A wise man sleeps when he can. Okay. A fool sleeps when he's tired. A wise man sleeps when he can.
Yeah.
Free is the most expensive.
Yes.
That's a great one.
That's a great one. Family first.
Yes.
Unless in meeting.
Why does family first come third?
Because the other two are more important. No, because I thought about it and I was like, for AVD, that's a bit boring, you know? Putting family up front like that.
Yeah. Too on the nose.
attention, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless a meeting involves food, don't attend. Here we are. I think that's actually really funny
Yeah.
because it's that's really good. You can never have enough gaff tape. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's true. Shut up and make something. Views are not a metric for success. Run, exclamation point. Never advance at the expense of someone else, and share your fails. Those are great. Those are 10 great rules.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, for sure. Those that's kind of what I took out of the time that I spent working with Casey and then being his friend for years after. I kind of took all of that and then wrote out those 10 things. I would like to do a similar thing with Jimmy.
Yeah.
In a more, why did I want to use the word like human, but in like more, because right now I think Jimmy's very hyper work focused. Like that is Jim. Like that's the archetype that he is in right now, and I think that for his age as well. At 25, Casey's what 42 now, and I started working with Casey when he was 35, maybe 36, 37. So yeah, he had a lot more life experience. So that's where all of those came from. Which ones were you?
Free is the most expensive for me. It was one of my favorites. I find that
because people try to give you shit all the time, eh?
Yeah, sometimes it's better to have like a transactional relationship.
Yeah, it's like, look at us. Like we have, like
See?
Dan's on the show and it comes at a heavy price for us. We got Bru Bars all over the table right now. Yeah. I think that one for me is like clean lines of transaction are so important.
Much better.
So important. Like some people are like, I don't want this to be transactional. You're like, but it is. But it is a transaction. Let's just make it. Let's just draw clean lines and boundaries. I also like shut up and make something. I think I've connected with that throughout my career of like anytime I've felt down or like I'm not progressing, it's just like, let's not think so much. Let's just make something. Because everything we've made, similar to your career, like our career was saved by Paul Lays at 368.
Whoa.
Paul connected us with Samsung and Samsung gave us a deal that saved us.
Whoa.
And so like,
was this back in 2019?
2019.
Okay.
Yep.
So like every moment in our career has come from us just like putting our head down, making something. And then like Colin said, you never know who's watching. You never know. And so like, I didn't know that Casey Neistat knew who we were when we had 3,000 subscribers.
That's a fuck up, hey?
That's like, crazy. That's wild, right? So it's like, if there's 1,000 views on a video, one of them could be.
And that's a lot of people, dude.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
We don't let ourselves believe
We don't let ourselves believe that. I think that's what's incredibly important is like about that line of like, shut up and make something. It's like, if you want to tick it out, make something.
Shut up and make something. I think that's what YouTube gives us the ability to do.
Yeah.
Right now, we could go live,
We have been live.
We've been live this whole time, Dan.
Oh, fuck.
Dude, I could sit here and talk to you all day. I really could.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun. Thank you for sharing and being open. And I'm excited to see, I love watching your work with Beast Philanthropy. I love watching your work on your own channel. I love every time a little piece of paper comes out of the screen and, on either channel, it's just like, there's Dan Mace's signature on this video, and I think you've been a creative that has progressed the scene forward.
Thanks.
Like the YouTube scene, you've put a care and attention into video that I think is what's making us all remember that this is an art form and a craft.
Wow. Sure. Means a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So, yeah, I'm excited to see whatever you do next, whatever videos you make next and whatever the next chapter of Dan Mace is.
Should have a YouTube video coming out on my channel like in the next 4 years.
Okay.
Between now and
the next two are I quit and I'm back.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Oh my.